Right. So before I give it to you, thank you, Sister Gopi, for joining. I'm sure you're joining from Madhuban, the Pandav Bhavan complex, right? And Sister Gopi is not new for us, but as always, let me just speak a few words about her and a poem as always. Yes, so Sister Gopi was she's a Lokik advocate by profession, if I'm not mistaken, and she has been with the Brahma Kumaris for ages now. Let's not count the years, since 1979. And all of you also know her that she is very well oversees the growth of the International Youth Forum, the IYF, and that is also since almost 30 years now, since the early 90s. And she's got this beautiful blend of Eastern and Western. Her Hindi is fantastic. So is the British English as well. And as always, the poem on her and regularity. So Sister Gopi has had a Lokik career in law, which was very curricular. But her spiritual alokik career is indeed marvelously extracurricular. That's because she's been a meditator who's very, very regular and who's also one of the best speakers, who's indeed very articulate. You'll experience that today. I told you regularity. She told me it's a very unique value, but there you are. We'll see what she has to say. Going on from articulate, her churning of knowledge is indeed very spectacular. Hence, among the youth and the IYF, she's indeed very popular. Today, she shall highlight on how not to become irregular so that we open the third eye and become extraocular. Develop this practice of soul consciousness, which is indeed very peculiar, taught only at the Brahma Kumaris, which helps us to be miles away from Maya Ravan, the predator. And with the Supreme beside me always, I can become the spiritual senator and win over Maya by being the powerful wrestler. And she shall teach us how to develop this moral muscle. Thanks once again to you for your company, and it's all yours. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Manoj Bhai. Your mind is wonderfully creative. And I do have to make a small correction. I have studied law, but I've never practiced law. Baba took me before I entered that field, even though some of the yajna service that I've been involved in has used those skills. So nothing ever gets wasted. But I guess when I was reflecting on this topic, I thought about my own context and how maybe to some people my life may appear irregular because sometimes I'm in one country for a few days, then another country for a few days, then another place for a few days. And I'm more used to living out of a suitcase and living in the air than living on the ground. So, and yet despite all of that, there is a regularity of morning meditation, Amrit Vela. There's a regularity of the morning spiritual study, which I think is a very important anchor. There's a regularity around food. It's like your inbuilt body clock. You will eat, you will sleep, you will have meditation, you will study. And I think, in Raj Yoga, a very beautiful routine has been created for us based on the 4 pillars. Knowledge, yoga, dharana, and service. And I always feel like in this life, it is a life of service. And to truly become fully serviceable, I remember many years ago, being in front of Avyak Baba, and Baba talked about 4 types of service. And I thought, if I can incorporate this into my timetable, then I can become fully serviceable. And the first was self-service, the foundation of service, which is, what am I doing for my own self-progress? And what am I doing regularly for my self-progress? Because you can't progress if you don't put into place certain activities. Now, I'll give you an example. The beauty is that we study every day. I study every day, but what I study every day is different. So I may study every day at the same time, 6:30 in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, but the content of what I'm studying is different every day. So there's always a newness that I'm looking forward to, despite being regular in my studies. I'm regular for my morning meditation, and yet the content of my morning meditations every day is so different. And I look forward to the 4 a.m. morning meditation that's like an anchor in my life. And yet the content and the experience during that time is so new. So sometimes when people talk about, well, regularity being boring, it's because you may have fixed the time to do something, but in what you're doing at that particular time, there might not be newness. And I think after a period of time, just repeating the same action again and again can be a bit boring. So I find that the subject of regularity is important when it comes to fixing. Well, it has a deep connection with time. So it's important when it comes to fixing certain principles in your life that I need to meditate every day. Now, what I do in those meditations is up to me. I need to nourish my mind with some spiritual food every day. I need to allocate some time to meet people, talk to people every day, and I can choose who I want to talk to and where I want to be. So I think so much is in our own hands to self-generate. So self-progress is a form of service, self-service. And then the second one is service of the world. And this is serving through your connections, relations, the people in your life. So do you make time in your daily timetable to connect with souls you may have not have spoken to for a while, to reach out, make new connections? So it's important to fix a time for that, because it's not just going to happen by itself. Sometimes you may think about someone, well, pick up the phone and speak, find a time to chat, because you don't know where a spiritual conversation is going to go. And it's quite important that, when a thought arises in our head, and I'm talking about a real thought, not just the kind of general, if you like, the general repetition of noise that's going on in our heads when we're ruminating, for example. That's not thinking. Real thought is original thought. It's pure, it's benevolent, it's maybe a touching, it's creative, it has something in it, opens the door to possibilities. So sometimes when a thought enters your head, maybe the time has come to open a door to that connection or that relationship, because thoughts and time are deeply connected. So serving the world, serving through your relations, connections, your communities, your societies. And then the third form is serving the yajna. And we're not talking about the organization of the Brahma Kumaris. We're talking about the spirit that binds us together as a spiritual family. How am I contributing to increasing that spirit? So, you know, it does mean serving through body, mind, and wealth, because the yajna is a flame. It's a spiritual flame of each one's connection with the Supreme that binds us together. And so, you know, okay, one part of serving the yajna may be helping out with cleaning, washing, dishing. Yeah, fine. Lots of people do social service in different volunteer organizations. Another part is serving with your wealth, but serving with your mind, which is the fourth form of service, is really knowing that, well, when I say serving the yajna, also it's both connected, because, you know, we're here to help each other go up. So if I generate resistance or a negative thought for somebody because I don't like what they've done, that energy will reach them and create a barrier to them going up. And the direct karmic return of that is I won't be able to go up. I won't be able to elevate. And so inevitably, as we harbor dislikes, or, you know, I know the Hindi word, I'm trying to look for the English. I think when we go against somebody, you know, in our attitude, it's so easy to make somebody an enemy. And I always think to myself, it's really important not to make any enemies, make friends. And to really know that really saying no to any form of waste or negative thought in my mind is a form of service, because I'm not creating roadblocks for myself and for anybody else. And then the fourth subject that was outlined was Mansa Seva, serving through the mind, which is really spending time in connecting, in considering oneself to be a soul without nothing, without anything. Nothing belongs to you. Creating a state of liberation first inside, and then being with God. Because when you sit with God in that state of freedom and liberation, then your vibes go very, very far. And they go to places that you can't imagine. You know, somebody will be on the other side of the planet and suddenly they'll feel hope, and they don't know where it's coming from. And they don't need to know, and you don't need to know where it goes. But because you renounce your limitations and you sit in a state of liberation, nothing belongs to me. And that allows you to stay altruistic in your connection with God. That bond, oh my goodness me, that bond of love can do miracles. So that also needs a time, because, you know, I remember in the early days of, especially starting service in Oxford, Daddy Janki would often tell us, you know, it's important you take time in the afternoon, 4 o'clock to 4:30, 4:45, and really any new students that come, serve through the mind. Give good wishes, give good vibrations, and that will support your new students that are coming to the center every day. So when I think of a life of service, then it's easy to become regular in things. But if your life, you don't understand the ethos of service, and that you're valuable and that everything you do is valuable, then it's almost like a compartmentalized life. You know, well, I do this and service is something else, and I have to get on with the rest of my life, and I'm not interested in the rest of my life. And actually, serving is so much deeper than just the act itself. It's what you're bringing as a state of being into everything you do. Now, the subject of regularity, I mean, you know, there were 3 words I was playing with: consistency, uniformity, and regularity. Consistency often is, you know, kind of sometimes related to character, consistency in behaviors. Consistency implies firmness and also harmony of conduct, you know. There's a sense of harmony with consistency. Now, here we are, a load of people walking in the same direction, each one consistent in their own activity, and yet we're harmonized because we're moving in the same direction. But uniformity means sameness. We're doing the same thing at the same time in the same place. And sometimes uniformity, it's like uniformity to rules, uniformity, there's no variety, there's no sense of harmony in uniformity. It's just everything's the same. But regularity is so much about, I think, as I understand it from a spiritual perspective, it's about my relationship with time. Time, thought, and action. And my principles. Now, to do something at a regular time every day is so important for children, for example. We train children to wake up, go to the potty at this time, eat at this time, study at this time, because it provides a rhythm and it provides emotional security. That's a given, and that's very important for a child to grow up with those anchors, because when they grow up with that kind of security, they can open up more. And that's important for children. And I suppose as we become adults, and especially in a world where things are becoming more and more unstable, adaptation is important. Adjustment is important. Now, it doesn't mean that, I adjust what gives me life. So, for example, yes, Amrit Vela is what gives me life. The Murli, the study, gives me life. My evening meditation gives me life. And these things are so important. They're as important as eating and sleeping. So becoming a good regular student keeps me healthy, mentally healthy. And actually, because it's a spiritual lifestyle that I'm becoming regular in, it's not a physical lifestyle I'm becoming regular in, it's a spiritual lifestyle. Like a physical lifestyle, you become regular is go to the gym at this time, go to work out at this time, go to play tennis at this time. And what tends to happen is your mind adjusts to the regularity of fixing a time around matter. So it's like a fix. It's almost like a ritual. And you can do that thing, like going to the temple at a fixed time every day or playing tennis at a fixed time. And then it becomes like a drug at a physical level, a physical lifestyle. And it becomes monotonous too, because there's not much change happening, right? So for me, it's less about that and more about sustaining the spiritual regularity in my spiritual lifestyle, which is the meditation and the study. So my mind is always engaged in something more elevated in its regularity, which allows me to handle irregularities in matter and in the changes in our physical world. So I suppose the question is, what are you being regular in? And sometimes, some people addicted to everyday gym, everyday tennis, everyday this, everyday that. And if that's taken away from them, the body, they feel they can't cope. And yet at some point, we have to live without certain things in our life. I do this a lot actually with tea. You see, you wake up in the morning, you have your meditation, you really like a nice cup of tea. And then it kind of becomes like a cup of tea, then you read something. And so from time to time, I'll just stop drinking tea. So I'll drink something else. I'll be regular in what I drink, but maybe it won't be a cup of tea. It might be something else, like a herb tea. I'll change it. So I don't become addicted to something where if I don't have that thing at that time, that particular thing at that time, then my body feels like I'm losing something. So, you know, there's plus and minus sides to these qualities, because when they're spiritually exercised, they create stability, they create steadiness, steadfastness, they create reliability, trustworthiness. But then when the focus of these qualities is just purely physical, then you become rigid and fixed and addicted and you know, quite, you know, you're quite individual in the way you want to live your life. You're very specific. This is how I want to live my life. And that clashes with being a server because a server is always available. And so there's something about our regularity, what we're being regular in. Is it keeping my mind flexible? Is it keeping my mind open? Is it keeping my mind available? Is it keeping my mind easy and light? Because when that happens, and that timetable or whatever I'm regular in is keeping my mind easy and light, then guess what? I don't need a clock in life. You know, things happen naturally. You know, you don't need to, the baby doesn't need a clock to know when it's going to be born, or, you know, seasons know when they come and go. Nature doesn't need a clock to know when something has to grow, something has to die. It's natural. We kind of enter into a natural rhythm of life, and we can live more naturally, and we can adjust to anomalies. So that's a really important thing to bear. In Bhakti, there's the story of Arjuna, you know, who is the best archers in Indian mythology. And there's a particular story where they were staying with their guru Dronacharya, and there was no lights at some point, and he found himself eating in the dark. And he thought, oh, well, I'm eating in the dark. I can't see my hand. I can't see the food, and yet I'm still eating. So he thought, why can't I practice in the dark? And it was that practice in the dark that eventually made him the best archer. And it was a regular practice in the dark. So there's something about regularity of a particular practice that makes it natural for us. Like what he was doing was eating in the dark. Now, it's natural to eat. And he was thinking, well, can I apply this to shooting in the dark? Now, with any activity that you practice over a period of time, at a fixed time, you will build a capacity in that. And that's what eventually leads you to success in that field. Because so much about being regular is building the hours, because it is the hours of practice. You cannot bypass hours of practice with trying to overanalyze and understand your way out of something, because you have to build muscle. You have to build, you know, be it intellectual muscle, mental muscle, physical muscle. You have to build the capacity to be able to do something. I remember, where was I? Yes, I remember being in Hyderabad, in India, quite a few years ago, about 10 or 12 years ago. And one of the things, I had gone to see a close contact of the BKs, who owns a very famous sports academy right next door to Shanti Sarovar, the retreat center, the BK retreat center. And it was interesting. His name is Palele Gopichand, and he's trained. He was the coach of Sania Mirza, who's a famous badminton player. And he was telling me something quite interesting. He said, in my day of learning how to play tennis, if the coach told us to run 10 laps, we never questioned him, because we trusted the coach knows we need to build this capacity in our legs to be able to run around the court. So we ran 10 laps. He says, now, if you ask the young generation to run 10 laps, the first question they have is, why? And he said, I spend more time making PowerPoint and than actually doing the training itself. It's a hilarious example because it's so true. I think there's a huge lack of energy at this point in time with the next generation, where when there isn't power and strength, you default back to why this, why that, why that. And even if you get a why, it still isn't enough motivation to do that thing, because sometimes you get the motivation just by doing it and benefiting from it, rather than sitting fence, asking 100,000, thinking until I'm convinced I won't do anything. Well, actually, sometimes it's when you just start doing it that the energy comes, the energy flows. So definitely regularity has its plus points when you just consistently do it and you see the benefits of it. And the benefits make you do more, inspire you to do more. So where am I with all this now? You know, there's something about I want to just explore that a little bit more. As I said earlier, what I'm being regular in will define the state of mind I live in. You know, my temperament, my mood, my whole sense of openness inside. And it helps if what I'm being regular in is spiritually benevolent, then it helps to create a connected mind, an easygoing mind, and a very lovely temperament in life. Which, you know, sometimes the word regular can be used for so many behaviors. You know, they regularly quarrel with each other. They regularly fight with each other. He regularly shows up for this event. So it's so physically, you know, it has negative connotations sometimes, this word. It's just you know, it's just the act of something that happens at the same time every day, or a similar behavior pattern that happens. But I think when we think of the regularity of features, for example, so regularity of features is something that's organized in an even and balanced way to create, you know, it's arranged in a balanced and even way that creates a sense of harmony. So if I was to think of regularity like that in my life, then the question for me is, how do I arrange my life in a way that creates a sense of evenness and balance? So that I can enjoy an easier, happier, more blissful life. Rather than be fixated thinking, if I do this every day, I'll be it, because that's not what this is about. There's a deeper intelligence that we need to tap into that allows us to become regular in some aspects to help us stay balanced. You know, so when I talked about the 4 types of service earlier, if you can find a time to do things in your day, then all of these are balanced. Self, yajna, mind, you're exercising all aspects of your being in an even and balanced way. So you're creating regularity in your being, which leads to a much more balanced personality. So, we have lots of different parts in our life. I think as human beings, we, especially now with so much available online, and everybody's looking for the diet, the food, the miracle cure, the this. And the reality of life is it doesn't work like that. Every small thing we get fixated on is just a small part of the big whole. And achieving a form of harmony and stability a lot to do with balancing different parts in the right measure. So being regular with important parts that make things work. We know that just even for the physical body, it needs night sleep for the body to repair itself. So being regular in your sleep helps the body to repair itself and rest and, give you energy the next day. We know that there are certain times of the day where the stomach needs food. I mean, that the Chinese body clock, for example, the hours between 7 and 9 are the intestine. And so eating a good breakfast at that time of day is very good. And most people eat breakfast during that time of the day. So, these kind of things where we put into our routine, our way of life, the right things at the right time. It helps the body. But the soul? What am I regularly doing to help the soul? That's a lot of things people miss out on, because people want to feel good in their body. But if something in their body is threatened and that thing is not available and you can't do it anymore, then, mentally, there isn't any flexibility. So I'm just reading a beautiful chat that's just come through, actually. My daughter is on the autistic spectrum. I work with people on the autistic spectrum. They've taught me that they need routine, regularity, reliability to feel safe and to be able to trust. When unstructured and inclusive change is thrust on them, they often have a meltdown. Staff label them with challenging behavior. There is very little curiosity of how we have caused the triggers of anxiety for the vulnerable person. Yes, that's a very lovely comment. And I do agree, especially with individuals that are compromised to a certain extent at a mental level. And like I said earlier, with children, these are aspects at a physical level that create safety and structure. But of course, a lot of what we're experiencing in our lives, I've noticed with children, I've worked a lot with young people, so many years, over 27 years. And I've noticed that they respond not to what I say, but to who I am. And, working with young ones from 10 right up until, late 40s, but the younger they are, they don't respond to my words, they respond to my presence. And I notice that if I am in a resistant state inside, even though what I'm saying is right, they can't hear it. And they play up because they're feeling what I'm feeling. And so for me, so much of creating a sense of safety for someone is making sure that I'm clean inside. Because cleanliness, a state of a clean attitude, a non-judgmental attitude, is what enables somebody to feel safe and with the universe, to flow through me, to allow divine love to flow through me to reach someone. So my question is, the thing is that I'm trying to differentiate between the physical and the spiritual here. You know, what children, especially in young people, need to see is a consistency and a regularity in our behaviors, because that's what makes them feel safe with us. Okay, they know this person's never going to shout at them. They know this person's not going to, okay, I can open up and be honest. So because most kids growing up they copy behaviors. So, and they're responding to a deeper dissonance because it's very loud. So here we are, you know, as an individual, I might want to create a perfect lifestyle. But if I haven't sorted out subtle negativity that's lying in my heart, it's lying in my attitude, or mindsets that are controlling or critical, then all of these vibrational frequencies create a rigidity around regularity, which then regularity can become a form of control rather than it being safe. So much, I think, for us as individuals, general human beings, we build a lifestyle just predominantly to create a good feeling in our bodies. But what am I doing regularly in my life that's creating a deeply good feeling in the soul, that's waking up the joy in the soul, that's waking up the peace in the soul? Because you know what? For any person, including children of any kind, it's those vibrations that ultimately create a sense of belonging. So I do understand and value hugely, you know, my own natural body rhythm. Wake up at a regular time, study to read, because it creates safety and it creates emotional security, I'll say. And your body gets used to doing something, so your mind can open. But those are basic things that we regular in. I mean, you don't mess with the basics of your life. You don't mess with your sleep. You don't mess with your food and diet. You might skip a meal, no problem. You know, you don't mess around with basics of physical needs that needs regularly for this body to function and support you. But that's not where life, you know, that's not the whole of life. Life has a different dimension. We are here for a higher purpose. And if we do not connect with that higher purpose and do not reconcile with our own selves and make friends with ourselves, you know, we run the risk of, because we don't feel fully in control of ourselves, we try and control our environment. We try and control our habits. We try and control external things around us. So I think for me, it's really about, what do I need to do? What's going to help me regularly nourish the soul to be able to create and cultivate a connected mindset, stable mind, an open mind, an easy mind, a peaceful mind. And what helps me build a spiritual rhythm? Because a clear mind, the quality of that kind of spiritual rhythm that gets created in my life, it's easy to be on your journey without bumping up against yourself, because you see what is unfolding in front of you. But, you know, I've noticed in my own life that if I, for example, you know, I think of serving as something that is only done for a certain period of time, and then the rest of the time I just get on with my life and looking after my body, I find that I lose a momentum, I lose clarity. But when I really have accepted I am a server, and I've got to look after myself in a way that allows my vibrations to reach far and wide. And so that no human soul experiences difficulty because I've sent something out that's not clean. Of course, every person has their own difficult issues to deal with, and most people, generally all of us, when we have reactions to things or people, we are dealing with triggers inside that we have not faced. So, you know, I'm not responsible for your trigger. I mean, I'm not responsible for your reaction. I might be a trigger for your reaction, but I'm not responsible for your reaction. And I feel that the more we develop a spiritual lifestyle and put into place creative meditations regularly, creative spiritual study, learning, and elevate, really look after our minds like a baby and like a child, then I really feel that things happen very naturally. You live in a state of trust when you spiritually nourish yourself, which is our original state. I mean, we were born into this world in a sense of trust. I have yet to come across a small baby that is insecure when it is born, or has a thought, oh, I'm so little, who's going to look after me? And yet this soul is born in such a tiny little body, is at its most vulnerable, and yet is like a master in the house because it just lives in a state of trust. It knows how to draw love from its parents. So we're born like that. And at some point in our life, we forget that and we become so self-conscious, where so much of our self-respect is defined by how other people see us and to fit in, that we lose living in a state of trust. And then for many, many years, you can spend decades trying to fit into the world, fit into society, please everybody, do what the right thing is, and still feel a million miles away from yourself. And then one day you wake up and think, I may need to meditate. So for me, it's about cultivating that parallel, which unfortunately in our world today is just not taught, is a parallel education on our spiritual way of being that complements our physical learning as well. So I'm going to stop there because I think I've rambled on enough. And just wondering if anything you'd like to share.
So thank you so much. It was beautiful. And I would like boil down to two things which you said: regularity with a lot of rhythm, and it should be a natural process of your being. You don't need to be so stressed if something irregular happens, but that's beautiful what you said. Okay, there's a question, a couple of questions we'll take. We have some time today. The first question is about, I get upset with people's irregularities. So how do I deal with irregular people?
Come and live in India. You know how, you know what gets dismantled? I was born outside India, grown quite between the West and India. But, you know, I've adopted an Anglo-Saxon mindset, which really values time. Okay, if somebody gives you a time, 10 o'clock, you're there 2 minutes before 10. And because, you know, that's the etiquette in society. And you don't realize how unconsciously you adopt that. And then you arrive 10 o'clock and somebody else then just, you know, oh, I forgot, was there a meeting? Oh yeah, I'm coming. Yeah, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And then they roll up 10 minutes later. And in that moment, you can feel, oh, my time's being wasted. This is it. But you have a choice. You either wait peacefully or you have all these waste thoughts about yourself and your time being wasted. And I think this is where our relationship with time and thoughts is important. Because when something doesn't happen at the time you want it to happen, then your thoughts will tell you what rubbish is still left inside the soul. And so, you know, it's not so much about the irregular behavior of others. Of course, we learn ways to handle this where, you know, we can gently tell people, is it possible that the next time we start a meeting, or give them a reminder before, or, you know, find ways of handling it to minimize these incidences. But at the end of the day, if my relationship with time is rigid, I'm going to have serious problems. Somebody just shared very beautifully, IST stands for Indian Stretchable Time. It's really, there's always time here in India. So, you know, it happened to me today. I'd given somebody 11 o'clock and they saw me at 11 o'clock and said, I'm just here. And they disappeared off somewhere for 10 minutes. And I just sat down very peacefully and I was very pleased that I wasn't reactive, and I just filled those 10 minutes with something productive. And so I think sometimes a lot of our reactions is because we've lost trust in the natural. I wasn't natural. There's a mechanism, and there's a very accurate balancing mechanism in the drama. And we've lost touch with that. We've lost touch with the naturalness of ourselves, the naturalness of other people, and the naturalness of time. And so, you know, I think something at the level of the thoughts has to be looked at. Why am I reacting so much? So what is my relationship with time like? Maybe just be curious about that and see where you go with it.
Great. And we'll take one last question in the interest of time. Yeah, you have a lot of stories always about Dadi Janki. So do you want to relate to one of the stories related to regularity? Anything you remember offhand with her?
You know, she's, oh my goodness me, she was incredible, actually. She had an amazing timetable. Of course, she would be up every morning by 4 o'clock, 3:45, she'd be up 4 o'clock. And then she would, in those days, early days when she'd come to class, she'd be there for time in the morning. And then she'd go for a walk after class every day, especially when the doctor said to her she has to walk for the body. Remember, she came to the UK when she was 61. So, you know, and she did have bodily issues. But then she would have breakfast around 10 o'clock-ish, lunch around 2:30, sometimes 2:45, and she'd have resting. And then dinner was about 8:15, like that. And she always seemed to make it on time for all of those things. And then before she went to bed, she would always go to Baba's room. And that, for me, was one of the most important pieces. She understood her body very well and what it needed, and she gave her body what it needed. She didn't indulge, but she gave her body what it needed. That's why it supported her to 104. But one of the practices that she was hugely regular in that I admired a lot was it didn't matter what time she finished in the evening, sometimes 10:30 meeting people, she would always walk to Baba's room and spend some time with Baba. And in that time she spent with Baba, 7 minutes sometimes 10 minutes. She would take drishti from Baba and she would just become a child. It was like she would just disengage from everything in the day, hand over everything to the Supreme Parent, and just completely relax. And she would go to bed like a little child. And I think this, how she protected herself before going to bed, was the secret of her staying above things. I think a lot of people today are careless about how they go to bed. And I noticed that one of the secrets for her state of mind and her stable state of mind, is that really every night she became that child, that instrument. She just disengaged. You know how Baba's loving drishti would just penetrate her and just release her from everything in the day. And that for me has been a very important piece in my Brahmin life, because it doesn't matter what I've had to face in the day and how many traffic controls I may have had, but you still have to face unpleasant things sometimes. But at night, because I take 15-20 minutes with Baba in the evenings, everything gets taken away. It's like nothing has happened.
Yeah.
It's like nothing has happened.
Okay. Thank you for, I think, disabling the auto rotate, because I think you had gone oblique. Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much. And we are seniors are apologetic. Dr. Mehta had something else and Sister Claudia also. So I'll request Sister Anu to please propose the vote of thanks. Over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Manoj Bhai. Actually, Sister Claudia also cannot join for some, her personal responsibilities. On behalf of everyone who's listening today, I want to thank Gopi Ben. It's so beautiful for so many layers and different aspects you shared. And I think what stayed with me is that being regular in keeping my mind available, easy, and light, so that I don't need a clock. Everything I'll do will be natural and I can adjust with everything in life, you said. So that's where the connection of meditation and thoughts, everything then comes in the practice. But yeah, I think keeping in mind to keep it like easy, accept, and not go into negative or any waste thoughts. That was beautiful. I'm sure we all will really revisit the talk and take points and bring to practice. So thank you so much, sis. And yes, over to you, Manoj Bhai. And at the end, we'll have the meditation as
Sure, yeah. So in the meantime, I'll do the announcements. And if you just want to quickly, if people want to have a quick photograph with Sister Gopi as a memory, you can just keep your videos on it. Sister Anu can just, okay, but in the meantime, I'll be sharing the screen. We'll do that later after I finish the announcements. I'll do it quickly. Yeah, so as we always wind up the value with a silence retreat on that for 2 hours. And this is particularly, I must say, on the teachings of, you're listening to Baba, these words, you're familiar. There are quite a few new people as well. So it's on the basis of the teachings, what we call the spiritual class, the Murli, Avyak Murli is based on that. We have this silence retreat once a month. This is the Avyak month. So we had 2 silence retreats. The 2 values we covered, the first was stability and the second one is regularity. So this is happening in next 12 hours from now. So for India, it's morning 9 to 11 and West Coast is 7:30 to 9:30. And as we move on to the next month, we have chosen 2 other values, the first being maturity, and very closely related to maturity is adjustment. A person who is mature will always be able to adjust. So the first one, episode 83, maturity, happening on 3rd February. We have our very dear sister, Dr. Kala Iyengar. She's the director of the Peace Village Retreat Center in New York. And as always, a week after will be the workshop, and we have with us Sister Sharona. who currently, I spoke to her yesterday, she's still in Gyan Sarovar, though she's the coordinator from Brahma Kumaris in Israel. And since last 6 months, she's in Gyan Sarovar for reasons you all know very well. So she'll be there with us for the workshop. And this is our elegant calendar of the next month, February. We'll send it to you in emails as well, and also on the WhatsApp group, which we have. So I'll just stop sharing the screen. These are our emails and websites. You can feel free to give us your feedback, visit the websites, and also all these episodes and the workshops are recorded. So you can find them on YouTube. These are the links, omshanti.tk/workshops. And the playlist / English is for the episodes of the Values for Life series. So I'll just stop sharing. We'll take a quick photograph with all your videos on, and then we'll go in the meditation mode with Sister.
We make this moment memorable with Sister Gopis, everyone. Yeah, they're opening still. Give me a second.
And so in the meantime, do you want, it will be a drishti or a commentary, whatever suits you.
You know what? I'm by the Tower of Peace. So I'm going to show you the Tower of Peace. Give me a second.
Sure.
And we'll have a meditation by the Tower of Peace. It's very beautiful.
Great.
Hold on.
Yeah. So there you have, we have a bonus, all of us through our minds going to the Tower of Peace in this beautiful Avyakt month. So that's perfect.
We've come to the Tower of Peace. This place is one of the holiest, most silent places on earth. It is the resting place of our founder, Brahma Baba. So just take these few moments to allow your mind to relax. Become present in this moment now. And tune into the silence of this holy place. Come to Madhuban. Silence is healing. Silence is a balm for the soul. And deep silence brings the power of great transformation. And in silence, we stay close to God. And we experience the safety of his eternal companionship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
So wonderful. Thank you so much, Sister Gopi, for even this beautiful feeling which you're leaving us with. The Tower of Peace. Thank you. Thank you, all of you all.
Thank you, Manoj. Bye. Bye-bye to everyone.
Thank you, everyone.